Welcome to the Cyber Center for Biblical Studies. Hi, my name is Herb Bateman. Today we have with us Aaron Peer, pastor of Charter Oak Community Church in Churubusco, Indiana. Today we want to discuss a book entitled The Four Warning Views in the Book of Hebrews. Aaron, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I thought we'd begin by just talking about this four views on the warning passages in Hebrews by just allowing you to kind of tell us about the book, outline how the book unfolds.
Yeah, the book kind of comes in 6 sections. The first part is an introduction written by you, and just kind of gives a general overview of the 5 warning passages and how they kind of fit together. And then we have 4 different views that are listed. Those are the next part, and starts with an Arminian view, and it moves to a Reformed view, and I think it goes to another Arminian view and another Reformed view. And then at the end, Guthrie kind of tries to tie it all together at the conclusion.
Okay. When you think about the presentations of each author, what did you appreciate about the presentations as they appeared in the book?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think that the way in which each of these authors engaged with each other, is kind of a pattern for how Christian scholars who hold to the inspiration of the Bible should act with each other. I didn't see much sniping at each other or much bad feelings. I mean, people were just trying to present their view, and everybody was gracious to one another. So I think that's what first stood out to me, is that, in an argument that can often be heated, there was no heat here. I mean, people really genuinely appreciated the scholarship of everybody else, and so I really appreciated that. If we go back to the beginning, your introduction, I mean, like the very first words of the book, I think are just a good way to kind of think about the warning passages of Scripture. You talk about, somebody going to seminary or somebody to go into school, and how do they stick to it? How do they graduate? How do they make it? Well, it's kind of a combination, right? They work hard. They take classes, they study, they go to the library. But also the institution itself kind of they're looking out for the student as well, and they're trying to guide them along and trying to make sure that they get there. And I think that's kind of a good picture for, salvation. God's involved, yes. We're involved, yes. And, can you often draw a line where those two are separated? Maybe not. I also liked in your section how you laid out the 5 warning passages in a chiasm, with the listen in chapter 2, verses 1 through 4, and in chapter 12. And then you kind of move in from there, and you kind of focus in on Hebrews 6 as the main warning passage there. And I think you kind of are tentative to say that chiasm is definitely there. But again, I think you point out that you see that type of feature on a micro level throughout the book. Why not on a macro level? I mean, he probably thought through this book pretty hard. So I love that chiasm, focusing in on Hebrews 6. And so I thought your introduction really laid out the warning passages very well. If we move into, kind of the different viewpoints, Osborne starts out, and he's got the classical Arminian view. And one thing I really appreciated about Osborne, again, I lean more on the Calvinistic side, so I mean, if I would, like Guthrie at the end, I would declare Fanning the winner just because I already agree with him. But I think Osborne did a fantastic job. And I think one thing that I really liked about what he said is that all of us are going to bring our background into this discussion. I mean, it's almost impossible to do. I mean, you can trace the background of each one of these authors, and you can see how they got to the viewpoint they hold from their education, from their church background. And I think Osborne made that comment, like, if you think that you're just being completely objective, then you're wrong. You're not being completely objective. You're going to focus on the data that agrees with you, and just by nature. And I think that was a necessary encouragement, from the standpoint, hey, we need to understand other people's point of view. And it was also a necessary warning, like, you got to be careful that you're not pushing your own theological system on what the author of Hebrews is trying to say. We want to really find out what he's trying to say. So I really appreciated that from Osborne. You move into Fanning, which he was the classical Reform response, which I just loved every page of. I mean, I agree with Fanning, so I loved what he had to say, especially about conditional clauses. I mean, that was really cool how he He pointed out how conditional clauses aren't necessarily cause-effect, like a lot of the debate seems to center around, but they're evidence inference. And so I really appreciated that, and he kind of went through a whole bunch of examples there from the book of Hebrews and just talking about how these things are evidence of faith rather than the cause and effect type of deal. As far as Cockrell goes, Cockrell gives a Wesleyan viewpoint, and just every page there you can just see his pastor's heart. He really cares about people. He really cares about how theology and practice meet. When we love the book of Hebrews, it should also come out in our lives, and it should come out in how we talk to people and encourage people in their faith. And so I just really loved the pastoral focus of Cockrell. And Gleason, I just kind of liked seeing something from a different point of view. Not really heard that point of view very often, that a lot of this was about the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And so it was just kind of an interesting take on it that I hadn't thought about before.
Okay, well, good. And that's a nice summary of what to expect in reading this work. Let me ask the next question, because you're a pastor. This is you pastor for a living. So I'd like to know, how did this book help you as you think about you just recently preached through the book of Hebrews.
Right, still preaching through it, yeah.
And still preaching through it. So how has this book, or does this book help you in your preaching of the book of Hebrews?
Yeah, I mean, these questions are going to be going through people's minds as we study these warning passages. And the author of Hebrews doesn't necessarily address them head on in a way that we would like. And that's one thing we got to remember, is these are our questions. They're not the author of Hebrews questions that he's trying to answer. And so a lot of times we're going to have to pull inferences out. But, the average Christian, they're going to be sitting there in their seat going, well, what does this mean about my salvation? Can I lose my salvation? Can't I lose my salvation? And so it's something that you got to address. Whether you just want to, I'm just going to stay faithful to what the author of Hebrews says. That's all well and good, but at some point you're going to have to address the pastoral concern there. The people sitting there who are thinking, can I lose my salvation or not? Or is this my work or God's work, or whatever it might be? And so this book kind of serves as a helpful kind of the lay of the land. Okay, here are the different ways that people understand this. And that can help you as a pastor, because you got to have a viewpoint before you even start the series on Hebrews, so that you know how to address each one of these warning passages as they come up.
Okay. Well, good. When you think about the book, are there any things in the book that you wish were included? Something that when you finished reading the book, you said to yourself, I sure do wish there was something said about this, or something said about that. Was there anything from your perspective that was lacking when you got done?
No, I don't think that there was. I think that because you had so many different authors coming at it from so many different points of view, there was a lot of stuff brought into it. So it ends up not just being about the warning passages, but really about the message of the book of Hebrews as a whole. Because each one is not just studying the warning passages, but also the encouragement passages that follow right after it. Also, other parts of the book of Hebrews are brought in order to kind of bring some context and understanding. And like I said with Cockrell, and he's not the only one. I mean, there's a lot of pastoral information brought in too. Like, what does this have to say to our people? And so I think for what it intends to do, it does a very good job.
Okay, well, good. Now, what are some other works? Certainly, you've used other works in your preparation for preaching and teaching the book of Hebrews. What have been some other texts that you've found helpful, commentaries perhaps, that you're really glad you have in your library that help you work your way through this particular book?
Well, let's start with you. Two things from you I've been using. I've been using your chart book on Hebrews,
okay,
which is it gives lots of big picture ideas, and it's a visual format, which I like. You can look at it and you can tell immediately what you're trying to say and see lots of information in one small space. And so I really like using that chart book. You also gave me a broken out clauses And I use that when I'm doing my translating. You know, you've got structured outlines there, and I can do the work of translating on my own, and so I use that every week. And as far as commentaries go, you know, I try to use a breadth of commentaries. And so one of the first commentaries I always go to is the Expositor's Bible Commentary, which he does a very good job of just laying out the big issues. And so, you know, just right at the beginning, you can think about those big issues. But as far as critical commentaries go on the way other side, I like Ellingworth, you know, in the NIGTC commentary series. You know, he just, you know, a very critical commentary, but he lays out, you know, a lot of the structure and a lot of the different viewpoints and things like that. So I really appreciate his work. I also like Bruce. I mean, Bruce is just a classic, F.F. Bruce, and the NICNT commentary series. And I also have been using Lane from the Word Biblical Commentary, which is also very helpful. But I think the one that I enjoy most is Peter O'Brien's Pillar Commentary. I mean, he definitely follows Bruce a lot, but I mean, he adds so much more depth and color, and because of the longer commentary, and I really enjoy it. It's kind of in the middle there. You know, it's not very overly critical, and it's also not just, you know, just hitting the big bullet points, but it's kind of a very happy medium there. So I really enjoy O'Brien's work as well.
Well, good. Well, thank you. And thank you for the plug for the translating Hebrews clause by clause that you mentioned. That will be eventually published in our ebook series, hopefully at the end of next year, 2015. It is in process. It's the work that I've used with students in classes, and so I'm delighted to know that it's been helpful for you in your preaching of the Book of Hebrews. Aaron, thank you for joining us. Really do appreciate your input on this book on the 4 views on the warning passages in Hebrews. And thank you for your ministry and the impact you're having at Charter Oak Community Church in Cherubusco. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. And until next time, have a great day.